I've been adding modifications to the same dashboard template for quite some time now, so I figured now that it's officially December, might as well start getting ready for the new year with a fresh new dashboard. Hey there, it's Elisa, but of course you can call me Ellie. I use Canva to create my own custom weekly dashboard for my classic size dashboard layout happy planner. But when I first started making my own dashboard design, I started using things like Keynote and Google Docs and Google Sheets, I think PowerPoint even at one point. And then I learned about Canva and started using that, realized it was easier, but I had already built some of the sections in these other programs, so then I just took screenshots of those and then added them to the Canva design, and it's just gotten too messy and kind of hard to update if things need to change. So I really just want to get everything created from scratch on one platform. And for now, the easiest platform for me is Canva. Now to get started, I'm not going to worry about any of the preset templates for these designs. I just want to start with a completely clean slate. Now, classic size happy planner pages are 7 by 9¼ inches, but that size includes borders and disc punch holes. So for the actual dashboard design, I'm going to shrink it down to about 6½ by 8¼ inches. Now, before we get too deep into the layout and structure of the page, I want to tackle the biggest, most complicated sections first and then work from there, starting with the habit trackers and chores list. Now, if you know anything about my functional planning style, you'll know that I love habit trackers. As much as I love Canva in general, one issue that I have is their table options, which I need to be able to create the base of the habit tracker. I just can't figure out how to get everything small enough with the formatting that I need, but I know from past experience that I can build what I need in Google Sheets. So I'm just going to stick with what I know here and take a screenshot of that when I'm done. But if anybody has a better way of doing this, please let me know. Now, I want to keep as much content as possible built within Canva, so I'm only going to use Google Sheets to build the base of the habit tracker, and then we can build everything else on top of that in Canva. I don't want to spend too much time on formatting here. I do want to make this habit tracker template as versatile as possible, and I don't want to have to keep coming back into Google Sheets to update it, so I'm making the column for the habits wider than I know that I need, and I'm adding more rows than I know that I need. Once I'm done here, I can get the screenshot and just paste it into Canva. What I end up with is significantly smaller than my original screenshot, but that gives me a little bit more wiggle room just in case I need to make things bigger or add some more habits later. Then I can go ahead and add my text in Canva, which is kind of annoying to get the spacing right since I'm basically just adding text on top of a screenshot picture. So this part does take a little bit of time. But once everything is all in place, it's good to go. This does help me out in the long run though, since if I do decide to change things later, I can just update the text as needed in Canva instead of having to open up a whole separate program, get a completely separate screenshot, and reformat everything else. I do want to make sure that I leave myself enough space to manually write in some additional things that I might want to add just for a specific week or two. Typically, I do like to keep 2 separate habit trackers on my dashboard. One for daily tasks and chores, and the other for more like health and self-care kind of stuff. This one is not only for checking things off that I want to get done on a daily basis, but also for tracking bad habits that I'm trying to break and reduce the number of throughout the week. So I kind of shade in the sections of those bad habits. Since the base of the habit tracker is just a screenshot or a picture, I can't really use a fill option for rows or columns, so I'm just going to go into the Canva elements to grab a rectangle to highlight that section of the habit tracker, then adjust the size, color, and transparency. Since there are so many pieces and layers to keep track of, I try to group everything together whenever I can. Okay, now it's time to work on the section that I have been dreading the most, my chore list. This is the list of household chores that I want to get done once or twice within a week, split up by room. This section is the very reason why I've been putting off redoing my dashboard for so long. Not only is the layout and formatting more complicated for this section than even the habit trackers, but since I moved, I cleaned my apartment differently, so I need to reformat this a lot. In the original dashboard template, I created this section in Google Sheets and just took a screenshot of the whole thing, kind of like what we did with the habit trackers. But that has really limited my ability to easily update it. So this time I want to build this section completely 100% in Canva. I've decided that I want to stick to the 2x4 type layout, but I don't want to keep the rows the same size this time. I'm going to start off with adding 4 lines to create the 4 columns just to get me started. And then since I'm changing my chore lists, I'm going to work on those next just to get an idea of how much space each room now needs. I like to give myself 2 checkboxes for each item just in the off chance that I actually do get something done more than once throughout the week, even though that's usually pretty unlikely. I like how my original chore list looked with shaded headers for each room or section, but since this isn't a formatted table, we have to get creative again with the shading and filling. So I'm going to use those rectangle shape elements again. Lining everything up and figuring out the spacing is a pain in the butt, but hopefully I only have to do this once and it's easier to update moving forward. Now that we have the big, complicated stuff done, let's work on filling out the rest of the page. Had to pause and get a snack for a second there. Got a Diet Coke and some Raisinets. Anyway, so obviously there's a lot going on my weekly dashboard. To help me keep track of what's what, I like to put a frame around each section just to separate them a little bit. So let's add those now to get an idea of how much space I have left for my other sections. To create these outlines or frames for my different sections, I go back to my trusty rectangle element, adjust the weight and color of the border, and remove the fill color. I am coming into this with the benefit of already having an idea of what I want this page to look like when I'm done. So this part is actually pretty easy. If you're designing your own dashboard from scratch, I wish I could give you some kind of shortcut for how to figure out what sections that you'll need, but really the best thing I can offer is just a lot of trial and error. For my dashboard design, since the chores list was changed so much for this new version of my dashboard, there's a lot of extra room for everything else. Even though I like to have a lot of really specific sections in my dashboard, I do like to keep kind of a giant master to-do list just for the one-off or random things that I need to get done throughout the week. Creating this part of the dashboard is a lot easier. There's really no fancy formatting or screenshots. It's just a bunch of typed up boxes and lines. There are some items that carry over and repeat each week, so after I get an idea of the spacing and everything, I did go in and type up those tasks because there's no sense on me physically handwriting those every week. I also like keeping track of things I've ordered and received throughout the week. Honestly, I don't really know why. It doesn't really help me plan anything, but I do also use my planners for like journaling and memory keeping. And since receiving something in the mail is something unique happening on that day, I figure might as well put it in my planner. The bottom of my dashboard is getting a little bit of an upgrade because I do have all of that extra room now after shrinking down my chores section. I'm still going to have a big section dedicated for just Ellie Planet specific tasks, but while my old dashboard had one other another section where I could brain dump or keep notes or checklists together for a specific project that week. Now I have 2 sections. So now that mostly everything is figured out, all that's really left is just to add some dot grids, because you know I love a good dot grid. Canva does have some dot grid graphics available to use, but of course it couldn't be that easy. None of them really have the sizing that I wanted, which makes things a little bit more complicated. So I did have to shrink one down, and I basically just kind of copied and pasted it over and over again to make it just one giant grid with little teeny tiny dots. But once everything is finished and I like how everything looks, it's time to print and cut everything. Now, even though I did design this at a 6.5 by 8.25 size, that doesn't guarantee that's the size it's going to be when I print it on paper. Why? I don't know. I'm truly shocked with how little I understand the printing process, to be honest. But what I do know is that if you're wanting to print a standard letter size template to fit your classic Happy Planner size paper, you adjust the scale of that sheet to 82%. So I do keep that in mind when I'm printing out my dashboard. Once it's printed, I like to keep it easy and just cut it out as one giant sticker. I don't use a Cricut or Silhouette or anything, just the good old-fashioned printer and paper cutter trick works for me. As far as paper goes, I'm not that picky. I just use whatever is easiest to get off of Amazon at the time. For this particular printing session, I am using the permanent full sheet sticker / label paper inkjet laser bright white matte finish from the brand Rock Paper Scissors. I don't know, it works just fine for me. Since the dashboard that comes already printed on the page has some pretty bold lines, I do try to go through and cover at least the biggest and darkest lines so there isn't as much showing through on the new dashboard sticker. But then I just lay down my giant dashboard sticker and ta-da! My own custom dashboard. It only took a gazillion hours and a ton of extra effort. Now, if you want to see my custom dashboard in action and get an idea of how I use my entire planner, go ahead and check out this video right here.